Good evening, everybody, and welcome to class. We'll go ahead and get started. Tonight we're going to run through some announcements. I'll cover a few reminders for the first exam. We'll go through a lesson on the XY matrix and how to use it for supplier ratings and reviews. We'll do the week 7 assignment. I'll talk a little bit more about the group assignment that's coming up, and we'll get started. So just throwing this out here one more time, not to sound desperate or anything, but I do have office hours. Please plan on making use of those. Next week, obviously, the exam is due at the start of class, and so I will be available next Thursday. Ahead of that, let me know if you can, if you'll be there, and I can kind of gauge how many folks will be in the office. And then one other quick announcement, as far as the in-class assignments, I just wanted to talk through the grading really briefly. Rather than going through and grading these exercises individually, my goal in creating those assignments is mainly to give you something to try and learn from, make sure that you're comfortable with the process, and just give you a chance to practice things. As I'm sure you realized on that first exam now, the in-class work is going to very closely mirror the work that you have on the exams. I am providing solution files for each of those. I uploaded several last week, and I plan on sending those out a lot sooner in the process, kind of going forward. The reason I have not posted those to date, I've got some folks turning in some assignments fairly late. So basically the way I'm grading these things is you get a 3 out of 3 for uploading a solution that at all resembles what we were going for in the class. You get a 2 out of 3 for uploading that solution late, and then you get a 0 for not submitting. And obviously you get one free pass throughout the semester, so use it wisely. I know I would have already used it, I'm sure, back in my excellent collegiate days. And then the last point here, just please ask questions. I've got some folks that are doing a really good job of saying, hey, I don't understand this. I think it's been very helpful for them to be able to understand going forward how things are working, and I think that's reflecting on some of the exam questions that I've gotten so far. And so just please ask questions if you're not sure on things. Next point here, on the exam, there are 2 files. You've seen all this before, but I'm just reminding you of it again. There's an inbound and an outbound portion, 1A and 1B. Again, you've seen all these problems before. Email or call me with questions. I had several folks last week send me emails. I appreciate that. I'm very happy to answer those as they come up. I do not want you to work together on the final answer. If you want to talk as far as methods and things, that's fine, but please do not get specific. Double check your work. This is really critical. I told you guys some bad horror stories from my experience back in the day, where I probably did not check my work in a professional environment. Obviously that's much worse than in a school environment, but even in this case, I expect your answers to be accurate, and I will grade it accordingly. Answer all the questions. There's several on both the 1A and the 1B, and then please make sure and upload both responses by Thursday before class, which is 6 p.m. Eastern. All right, so we're going to get into the XY matrix tonight, talk a little bit about that. The question that we're trying to answer is, how do you know which supplier is best or worst in terms of overall performance? So, for the rest of our class time tonight, let's just think of your role as being a supplier improvement person or a supplier performance person, and you are attempting to basically gauge which suppliers deserve more business or less business, or where do you need to focus your attention on suppliers to improve in the coming year. So the problem with that is suppliers can do a lot of things well or poorly, right? So it's not like there's just one metric to grade suppliers on. There's actually probably hundreds of metrics, but we're going to talk about several in our activity today. So what tool can you use to gauge a lot of suppliers across a lot of different factors? And the answer is kind of already given to you here. It's the XY matrix. Basically, it's a tool used to compare items using multiple weighted attributes. And that doesn't mean much to you right now. It'll mean a lot more here in a few minutes. Basically, we're talking about Madden ratings. So if you look at these 4 players listed here, you'll see these are 4 quarterbacks, NFL quarterbacks. You can argue about the rankings here, all that, that's fine. But what I'm trying to get you to look at is we've got an overall score, and you can see they've got Aaron Rodgers rated as a 96, Ben Roethlisberger as a 93. So what does that mean? Well, that overall is basically a calculation based on these other attributes out here to the right, and honestly several more beyond this. So, for example, you look across this top row, awareness. Aaron Rodgers isn't actually the best at awareness of these 4. He's actually tied for second. Speed, he's again tied for second if you look at these 4. Accuracy, tied for second. Agility, tied for second. Strength, wow, actually very bottom, right? So you can see across this list, he's actually not the best at any of these things. Now you could say like late game heroics or hitting Randall Cobb on a deep out or something. Like obviously he's going to be up pretty high on those items, but how is it possible that he's the best overall and not the best at each of the attributes, right? And the reason for that is we're doing a calculation to determine overall based on a combination of these things. There are other attributes, if you guys are familiar with the game, like let's say kicking accuracy. Everyone in the game has a score for kicking accuracy. But when we're trying to figure out the overall rating of a quarterback, kicking accuracy is not an important variable for us to consider, right? So this is going to make a lot more sense in the next example, but I just want to kind of highlight to you guys what the thinking behind an XY matrix is. All right, so let's walk through a quick example here. So I really want to ask you guys this question, but you're not here to ask, so I'll just kind of walk through it for you. Basically, what we're talking about here is what are some factors to consider when you're selecting a home. So right off the bat, you've got a price. All right, how much is it going to cost for me to have this? How close is it to my work? How close is it to a daycare or to my kids' schools? How close is it to quick serve Mexican food? We all know which one's best. What's the yard size? What are the maintenance needs on the home? And then we've got kitchen functionality, architecture style, number of square feet. There's a lot of factors here, right? So each home will score differently on each of these factors, okay? So price, a home that's $110,000 will score a lot differently than a home that's $2 million, right? The kitchen functionality. If you have a brand new, updated, state-of-the-art kitchen, that's going to score a lot higher than one that was built in, 1982. So that's one kind of way of thinking about things. But secondly, different people will rank these factors as more or less important. So just to give you a couple of examples, my parents, they live in a single-story home that doesn't have steps. That's important to them. It's not important to them how close it is to daycare because they don't have any young kids at home, right? It's also not important to them as much like the number of square feet. Like they're kind of in retirement and phasing down a little bit, so square feet is not as important to them. On the other hand, my dad's a gardener, right? And so yard size is actually really positive and important for him. Let's compare that to maybe some of you that are young professionals getting ready to enter the workforce. You're going to be on the road all the time. You don't want to come home on the weekend and mow a bunch of grass, right? So yard size would actually be a negative for you, right? So different people are going to weigh these factors differently. That's kind of what I'm trying to walk through to explain what these different factors represent. So let's talk a little bit more about how you actually conduct an XY matrix. So the first thing is figure out what are the important factors. So what are the things I'm going to rate folks on? Next, you want to collect scores for each factor. by option. So options would be like the different quarterbacks or the different homes you're looking at. For us, in our example, it's going to be different suppliers. So we have to do data collection to figure out what are the actual scores for each of these options. Next, we want to determine the importance for each factor. In the way I do it, you want to add those up to 100%. So you have a certain amount of value to assign to those different factors, and you get to decide, well, how do I want to rank these, right? And then we're going to combine those into a single XY matrix. So in this case, the way we kind of think about it, the different options are the X's, the different factors are the Y's. And this will make sense to you once I actually build an XY with you. And then the result is there's an overall performance score based on all of those different options and factors. What we're trying to get at is which suppliers are performing well, which suppliers are not performing well. So go ahead, hop on Canvas, and download the week 7 assignment file. You're going to want to upload your response before next Thursday at 6 p.m. I say this every week, and then I'm appalled that no one does this. Please open it up and fill it out while we're talking together tonight, and you'll be done with it. You won't have to think about it again. This is one of the easier concepts, I think. There's going to be some formulas to talk about, but you guys are VLOOKUP pros now. So literally grab your Excel file, pause the video, and we'll walk through it together. And then when you get done, just upload it. Just be done with it. It's a good thing to not worry about it. Okay. So just to give you a little background on this exercise. So again, you're the manager of supplier performance, and you've been tasked with ranking suppliers based on several metrics. So using the information already collected, rank all the suppliers and answer the questions on the assignment tab. So we will go ahead and get started on that.